Good morning. It is Friday, October 16th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today. Violence in Jerusalem. Israel braces for a Palestinian day of rage after a week of violence. Will be in Jerusalem, the center of the recent tensions. Washington says U.S. troops will remain on the ground in Afghanistan beyond 2016. And a closer look at the much talked about upcoming movie, The Room. We'll take a closer look. Stay with us. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin straight in Jerusalem today, where a day of rage has been announced yet again. A day of rage declared by Palestinian organizations and Friday prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the center of the recent surge in violence rocking Israel and the West Bank. Yesterday was the first day in 2 weeks in which no stabbings or attempted stabbings of Jews by Palestinians were recorded, a welcome relief, to end yet another week, though, of mayhem. This is not to say that there are no security incidents. Riots took place in several West Bank hotspots, and for about 2 hours yesterday morning, the country's commercial hub, Tel Aviv, came to a halt when police conducted a manhunt for 2 suspected terrorists who turned out to be innocent electricians from East Jerusalem. And I think this only goes to show the tensions that are in the country. Meanwhile, of course, the leaders, both Mahmoud Abbas and Benjamin Netanyahu, on each side of bank, so to speak, are jabbing at each other, each side basically blaming the other side for incitement. A lot of that going on yesterday, but ahead of the day of rage announced by Palestinians today, let's take a look at the following report about what transpired yesterday. A fairly quiet day, but very, very violent verbally. Let's take a look and break it down.
One 13-year-old boy, 2 opposing versions, and a lot of hostility. The war of words is getting fiercer.
We won't give up for the logic of using brute force and the occupation and aggression policies that are being practiced by the Israeli government and the settlers that are practicing terrorism against our people and our sacred places, our homes, our trees, and the execution of our children, like they did for this kid, Ahmad Manasra, and other kids.
But Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's heated words quickly had cold water poured on them when the Israeli government published photos and videos of the cited 13-year-old Palestinian boy who is in reality alive and well at an Israeli hospital in Jerusalem, where he was taken after being wounded while stabbing a 13-year-old Jewish boy on Monday.
Now we have a new big lie. That new big lie is that Israel is executing Palestinians. Yesterday, President Mahmoud Abbas accused Israel of putting to death, executing an innocent Palestinian boy. First of all, he's not dead, he's alive. Secondly, he's not innocent. He tried to kill, murder.
Yet the fight over the storyline doesn't stop there. An inside document of the Palestinian Authority, exposed by the Israeli Army radio, reveals the efforts of the PA to control the media publications regarding the recent upsurge in violence. In this document, sent by the Palestinian Ministry of Information to Palestinian media organizations, the ministry forbids the publication of any quotes by Palestinian leaders and figures if they were previously used by the Israeli media. The reason? Distributing or supporting the Israeli version of the events. But the control over public opinion is far from being a Palestinian struggle alone.
We've certainly seen some reports of security activity that could indicate the potential excessive use of force. And again, we don't want to see that anywhere.
The U.S. State Department touched off wrong nerves of Israeli officials after 2 Israeli ministers, Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon and Internal Security Minister Gilad Erdan, forcefully commented on Washington's position, stressing the State Department has always been hostile to Israel and denying any use of excessive force. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered his government's ministers not to comment on the issue, saying, "I'm taking care of it." And he did.
I expect all our friends and anyone concerned with the facts and the truth to look at these facts, to see the truth, and not to draw false symmetry between Israeli citizens and those who would stab them and knife them to death.
In times of rising tensions, racing developments, and heightened attention, there's one thing that's as important as taking control on the ground, and that is taking control over the narrative.
Let's go first. We're joined on the phone by Moav Vardi, Channel 10's diplomatic correspondent. Moav Vardi, good morning to you. I want to start first with the report that came out from your channel the other day in terms of progressing or actually putting down the flames of what's going on in the region currently, that the Israeli Prime Minister, or that there are forces that are trying to put the Israeli Prime Minister and President Mahmoud Abbas into a meeting in Amman, some sort of a summit. Any progress on that?
No, I don't think there is real progress. I mean, Netanyahu said just yesterday night in the press conference to the foreign media that he is willing to be participated in this summit. But Netanyahu always said that the issue is
True.
Yeah, the issue is whether or not Mahmoud Abbas is going to take this suggestion and meet Netanyahu in Amman. Now, you have to understand, Yael, that for Mahmoud Abbas, meeting Netanyahu in a heavily media-covered event in Amman,
in a press op,
is something that might be perceived in the Palestinian public and the Palestinian media as something as he, is a cave-in to the Israeli, I would say, circumstances or conditions, while there is nothing that he can gain out of it, because this summit has one purpose: to calm things down on the ground. And to calm things down on the ground, Netanyahu would say there is no change in status quo, but this is what he's keep on saying for for weeks.
Right.
The summit means to make Abu Mazen say publicly that, look, guys, there is no change in the status quo in Jerusalem, let's calm things down. And this is something that for Abu Mazen politically, politically, will be something very hard to say publicly in such a summit in Amman.
Now, Moav, do not go away, because we have Ali Waked with us in studio as well, I-24 News, senior Middle East affairs analyst. Ali, if you're listening to Moav, Abu Mazen can't afford, actually, as a leader, I tend to agree, but would you agree that Abu Mazen can't afford to go to a summit that is essentially a press op?
First of all, Moav mentioned the status quo, and the status quo in Jerusalem is only a small component in the big picture that Abu Mazen is trying to exploit from these incidents. And Jerusalem and the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa are only the trigger for these incidents. Abu Mazen would not go to any summit, not only not to calm the situation, and not even to have a guarantee from Israel that they will be back to the old status quo, because we know when you visit the Temple Mount, you see that there is a change in the status quo. Well, the fact that the Israelis will repeat thousands of times that there is no change, maybe there is no official change in the status quo, but Jews are praying contrary to the status quo and understandings between Israel and Jordanian and Palestinian. This is one thing.
I mean, they have for years. I think the argument is also that the amount of Jews climbing up to the Temple Mount has risen dramatically.
But believe me, Yael, as far as Abu Mazen is concerned, the issue of the Temple Mount is not the main issue. This is for him the trigger to bring back the Palestinian issue to the center of the attention of the international community, and not the religious nature of the conflict, or even the fact that the religious nature dominated the discourse of the last weeks. For Abu Mazen, Jerusalem and the Temple Mount and the Al-Aqsa were the trigger to bring back the Palestinian cause and to say we should talk about the occupation. And for Abu Mazen, the occupation is the story, and Jerusalem is only a small part of this big picture.
Now, Moav Vardi still with us on the phone. I'm Channel 10's, Israeli Channel 10's diplomatic correspondent. Listening to Ali when it comes to that bit of the status quo, I don't know if you agree, but I'm wondering with you also out loud, when it comes to international intervention, this diplomatic attempt, if we can even call it an attempt on the part of the Americans, are there any pushes internationally to try and resolve things? Or can we judge just from Benjamin Netanyahu the spelling words of Kirby that the Americans, per se, are not really interested in stepping into this?
No, I think that I will put it this way. The Obama administration is totally desperate from trying again and again to make these two guys, Netanyahu and Abu Mazen, reach something profoundly and meaningfully in a negotiation. But John Kerry is another story. Now, John Kerry happens to be the Secretary of State, so, you know, he has some position in it. Going back to what Ali said,
yes.
I totally agree. I mean, you have to understand, Yael, for Abu Mazen, following what Ali just said, it's totally true. For Abu Mazen, he has to gain something from such a summit. He will not go there just for the photo op, because this will be that the only Israelis will have to can gain something out of it. For Abu Mazen to gain something out of it and to justify the trip to Amman to meet Netanyahu publicly, he has to get something on the real issue, on occupation, on negotiation, on the peace process. And Netanyahu, as far as I know, as far as I understand the prime minister, he's not able to give something substantially. I mean, he cannot give something like, anything like terms of reference of, okay, let's go back to negotiations, but for what? Negotiating 67 borders, negotiating capital in East Jerusalem. He cannot say, he doesn't want to say, he doesn't believe in that. He only can repeat the mantra of let's go back to negotiations. This is something that falls far short from what Abu Mazen needs in order to provide his portion of going to a publicly photo op with Netanyahu.
No, definitely. Yes,
it is amazing because Abu Mazen, since the first time, from the first part of the first Intifada, thinks that because of this Israeli government, violence, and keeping this flame of confrontation in the West Bank may serve the Palestinian issue, or at least will not bring any damage to the Palestinians. He told the Fatah and he told the officers of the security services, we will do everything in order to prevent any fire attack, any suicide bombing, but we want to keep this flame of popular resistance, of popular confrontations maintained, but we should guarantee that this flame will not be growing and going out of control when we politically will think that we should take it down. And here Abu Mazen is going on a very thin bet, because if one attack will succeed, I think that this will change the whole the whole issue.
I would say the status quo of the conflict right now, of the level of violence on the ground. Right.
Absolutely, and he needs to maneuver now between the fact that he needs to have some flame in the streets of Ramallah versus Beit El, Hawara versus Itamar, Yitzhar, Al Arub refugee camp versus Gush Etzion, in order to tell the world it's not only about Syria, and Syria is not the center of everything, and that there is a Palestinian issue. That let's think that maybe if we will go into a serious process to reach peace agreement, while Netanyahu talk about negotiations. Abu Mazen doesn't care negotiations or not negotiation. He wants to see an agreement that he can be able to sell to the Palestinians in a moment where his popularity is keeping going down and down in the Palestinian street.
No, and it's a fascinating point, the popularity. I'm glad Moav is still with us, because I think Moav, as you said, Netanyahu can't come to any meeting and present a paper, which is what the world wants to see, some sort of a map, something, a blueprint to put on the table. But when it comes to Netanyahu's standings, because what Ali mentioned now in Abu Mazen, and we've seen the last 24 hours, I think, was just jabs and violent words between the two leaders. When it comes to Netanyahu's standing politically, is he losing favorability throughout the last several weeks, would you say, or not?
I think that he loses some, but I think the issue is what will we see in the days to come? Right. Because if there is no escalation, Netanyahu can survive and can endure this wave of terror politically. And if in 1 week from now everything will calm down, it's a bump in the road for Netanyahu, but it's not a devastating crunch. Right. If the situation will deteriorate and escalate, then Netanyahu will have to provide something to the public in order to maintain its political standing, because the public in Israel is motivated by one thing, and most of the time one thing only. This is security, and when the public doesn't feel security, he loses faith in its prime minister.
Okay, Moav Vardi, I want to keep you just a little bit on the line yet, because I want us to have a listen, and you can hear it here, and I'm sure you heard it. The Americans' role in this has been quite bizarrely interesting in many ways, because it seems like everybody's clarifying their words, be it the Israelis, the Palestinians, or the Americans. John Kerry had to clarify the State Department spokesperson Kirby yesterday, basically saying that, as Israeli Prime Minister mentioned, to see who exactly is to blame. Let's hear Secretary of State John Kerry clarifying the American position, so to speak, of what exactly it means is going on in the Middle East and who's to blame. Let's have a listen.
We strongly condemn the terrorist attacks against innocent civilians, and there is absolutely no justification for these reprehensible attacks, and we will continue to support Israel's right to defend its existence. I expect to be traveling to the region in the coming days, and we will remain very closely engaged in order to support efforts to stabilize the situation.
Finally, Moav Vardi, if you've heard Kerry, and I'm sure you heard him before, the Americans in this, are they just trying to sweep this under the table? I'm sorry for using harsh words. Or are we going to see Kerry coming here in the next several days or weeks, as has been semi-promised, trying to show some sort of involvement?
Yes, I think that Kerry will try to show some level of involvement. I think that the issue goes back to whether or not Kerry can come up with some kind of formula or a solution to make the peace process go back on track. I'm very, very skeptical on these chances, and I think the American right now has one major purpose, and this is to calm things down. Now we will have to see in the days to follow whether or not the power of a superpower like the United States can make Abu Mazen and force Abu Mazen and Netanyahu do something that they don't initially want to do. For Netanyahu is to give something on the peace process for Abu Mazen, and for Abu Mazen to give some kind of a declaration, of an announcement that he is willing to calm things down. Okay,
Moav Vardi, Channel 10's diplomatic correspondent, thank you for joining us this morning. Wonderful to hear your voice. It is the time to move along. Ami Kaufman, the man who always knows what date it is, but also what we need to take a look at and listen to. Thank you for being with me in studio.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. What do we need to know this
That
morning?
New York Times scoop we talked about yesterday morning about Obama and he's probably going to leave troops in Afghanistan turned out to be a very good scoop, very reliable scoop as usual from the New York Times.
Unbelievable.
Next day he came out with a press conference saying that he is going to keep troops there all through the rest of his term, probably until January 2017, at least 5,500 troops. We have a report about it. Let's check it out.
It's a significant reversal for President Obama.
This modest but meaningful extension of our presence, while sticking to our current narrow missions, can make a real difference.
There are about 9,800 U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Nearly all were supposed to be home by the end of 2016. But the president, on the recommendations of his top military commanders, will now leave as many as 5,500 in place. It will be a twofold mission, similar to the current one: counterterrorism operations and training and assisting Afghan forces. So why the shift in policy? Top Pentagon officials believed Afghan forces weren't ready to operate on their own, and there's been a recent surge in violence by the Taliban and now ISIS.
In key areas of the country, the security situation is still very fragile, and in some places, there's risk of deterioration.
Last month, Taliban fighters took control of a key northern city. Afghan forces battled back in Kunduz with support from U.S. airstrikes. But one strike was catastrophic. A hospital was hit, leaving 22 people dead, including 12 staffers from Doctors Without Borders.
A hospital was mistakenly struck. We would never intentionally target a protected medical facility.
I think this is one of the most, to me, one of the most important stories of this week.
It's huge. It's really, really huge. I think one of the things also that this report actually didn't mention, and I want to add, is that one of the reasons that they're going to stay longer is that compared to his predecessor, President Hamid Karzai in Afghanistan, who really wanted the troops out, the current president, Ashraf Ghani, is very supportive of keeping U.S. troops inside Afghanistan.
That Karzai was kind of booted out because the Americans didn't get along with him anymore.
Very true. Very true. So after his recent meeting in the White House, I think that's when the White House started to think about maybe we should keep
and
things in Afghanistan.
it's sad to see that what's happening to the United States and Afghanistan. Granted, we know that's the first war sparked right after 9/11. That they're muddled there, just like the Russians were in the 70s, and that never ends well. Yes.
And it looks like they might be muddled in some other places, but we're not hearing a lot about it in the press. But I want to bring this small headline from the BBC that U.S. is going to deploy troops in Cameroon, Western Africa, to fight ISIS militants to fight Boko Haram, which is basically now
sort
of a subsidiary, I guess
branch,
you could say, a branch of ISIS. It's going to be a force of about 300 people. They're going to conduct airborne intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance operations in the region. It's actually not the first time that there are U.S. troops in the region. Also in northern Nigeria, where they're also doing similar things to fight Boko Haram militants. Obama said yesterday that they would remain in Cameroon until they are no longer needed, to quote Obama. So that could be indefinitely.
That's a line that usually means.
Yeah. So this is something that we don't really talk about too much, and it's a U.S. presence there.
It's towards the end of the Obama presidency, and you and I discussed this several times. One of the main promises apropos Afghanistan to the American public was pulling American troops out of Afghanistan. Not only can he not do that, I mean, in his defense, really, I think if the Americans pull out of Afghanistan, it just falls into Taliban hands.
And ISIS now.
And ISIS and whatnot. But when it comes to Cameroon, we're seeing American troops that cannot leave any type of region or entering it again. Yes.
I think you're really going to like this story, Yael. This is from Politico, or actually Politico magazine. It is written by Frederick Hoff, who was Hillary Clinton's special representative on Syria. And he wrote an op-ed sort of essay. Right. It was very critical, not only of Bashar Assad and, of course, at how he's massacring his own people, very critical of Obama and the White House. He was kind of taken aback. I guess he didn't know, he feels like he didn't know how bad the situation in Syria was going to get, that 250,000 people were going to die. But he also had some insights and a sort of a scoop saying that Israel and Syria were actually very close in March 2011 to some sort of peace deal. And I want to give
and that's when Netanyahu is prime minister.
That's when Netanyahu's prime minister.
Prime minister, right. Okay,
I want to read you two money quotes from this very, very interesting piece. He says, Assad told me, Frederick Hoff, in February 2011 that he would sever all anti-Israel relationships with Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas and abstain from all behavior posing threats to the state of Israel, provided all land lost by Syria to Israel in the 1964 would be returned. And then he has some more stuff about how Netanyahu was going to react. And he says, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was interested. He was not at all eager to return real estate to Syria, but found the idea of prying Syria out of Iran's grip very fascinating. And the negative implications for Hezbollah of Lebanon following Syria's peace accord with Israel were not lost on him in the least.
That's 2011.
That is March 2011. He said a month later, in April 2011, Bashar Assad started killing his own citizens in the south of the country, in Daraa, and everything just disappeared. Very quickly.
And you know that this is something that in the near, and I would say even the far future, can never happen now, given the fact that Iranian troops are amassing and putting Assad in power. This is a man who will owe his life to the Iranians.
Basically said the last line of this op-ed. That is exactly what he said. It is not going to happen.
Never.
Very good summary.
Yeah, and
on BBC here, as we can see from this headline, reporting that 2 new Lockerbie bombing suspects have been identified. Remember Lockerbie in 1988, the Pan Am plane that was 270 people died. Pan Am 103 flight was blown up on the evening of the 21st of December 1988. These 2 people are Mohammed Abu Jala Masood and Abdullah El Sanusi. Sanusi was the brother-in-law and intelligence chief of former Libyan dictator Colonel Gaddafi. And he's currently awaiting execution in a Libyan jail. Masood is reported to be serving a prison sentence in Libya for a bomb making. So the authorities, both American authorities and Scottish authorities, want to get hold of these people, of course, before Sanusi is executed, to see if they really had anything to do with this bombing.
With that bombing, and if anything happened, though, they're already behind bars. But again, you know, I think this is one of the stories that never. I think I covered Lockerbie already 20 years ago, and throughout the 20s, that just does not go away.
Does not go away.
Yeah.
Not go away.
Yep.
Volkswagen, one of my favorite stories as well. The Germany government is actually showing some very tough love, shall I say, for Volkswagen. It is not pleased with the plan that Volkswagen submitted for making these recalls of bringing back the cars to the garages and making these fixes
of which
too
they
slow
lied about.
We're talking about the emission scandal. A real public snub from the German government by its transportation minister, saying, we are not pleased with how you are handling this. This is not fast enough. You recall 2.5 million cars immediately. All over television splashed, saying this is a real embarrassment for Volkswagen, that the government is actually going out sort of like one of its own.
One of its own, and telling them, giving them orders.
Right.
Yes.
Giving them orders.
Giving them orders.
It's a mandatory recall. They're saying you are not doing this fast enough. So this is putting a lot of pressure on Volkswagen. Volkswagen hasn't really replied yet. They don't know how they're going to do it so fast as the government wants them to do it.
I think this is the make or break time. It'll be interesting to see if they survive this. It's even hard to call it scandal. It sounds even too delicate. But to see if Volkswagen survives this as a huge corporation.
Yeah.
Yes.
On to some lighter stuff, if I may.
Please.
Boris Johnson, mayor of London. Some call him the successor, the heir of
okay, yes.
Cameron, the Tory party. He's in Tokyo doing some kind of business tour. And they had this little rugby match, a fake rugby match with some kids, 10-year-old kids.
Okay.
And something kind of weird happened at that rugby match. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah. Oh my God! And the kid has the look of, who is this psycho man? He tackled a kid.
That is Boris Johnson running over a 10-year-old.
Yeah, running over is much better than tackled. Yes.
That's kind of painful to watch.
That is the mayor of London, folks. That's the mayor of London.
Yeah.
Actually,
he said, we have just played a game straight of rugby with a bunch of kids, and I accidentally flattened a 10-year-old on TV,
accidentally
unfortunately.
Flattened. Yes. You tackled him. Okay. And
this is great. You watch Homeland, yeah?
I actually used to be an avid watcher of Homeland. I found the last season to be a little bit bizarre, but yes.
Well, there's an episode that was aired just last week, and it happens in supposedly a Syrian refugee camp, and you can see Carrie Mathison, the actor, it's played by Claire Danes. Carrie Mathison, the actor.
Right.
She's walking by some graffiti there on the wall, and this graffiti was written by graffiti artists that wanted to make the place more authentic.
Yeah, they were hired by the production to make it more
hired
authentic.
By the production, but they kind of fooled the production.
Right.
And what it said there is that Homeland is racist. And
that's one of a few things.
And these two pictures, the first two pictures that I'm saying, on the right, they said freedom now in 3D. That's the picture on the left. And Homeland is watermelon, batik, which is kind of something to say not to be taken really seriously.
Yes. Yes.
Another one, Homeland is not a series, and the situation is not to be trusted. This show does not represent. This show does not represent the views of the artist. Homeland is a joke, and it didn't make us laugh.
It makes me feel like
So the two artists went onto the internet and said that we did this on purpose because Homeland is racist and
it's a racist show. And this episode aired, folks. It aired on American television.
Yes.
I think it's sadly all the time that we have for this bit.
Yes. It's great because in our next half hour, I will show you Bernie Sanders doing some moves.
Yes. Stay with us, folks, because when we get back, Bernie Sanders, the man, the hopeful nominee, and the man who Ami Kaufman loves very much, will be dancing for us. Stay with us first, the news. Welcome back. It is still Friday, October 16th, 2015. It's still the morning edition on I-24 News, the place you should be. Mayhem and the wave of violence that has been rocking Israel and the West Bank, sadly, not really stopping. Today, Friday, October 16th, Palestinians have declared a day of rage, and all eyes are on Jerusalem, which is really the focus of where all this violence started about 2 weeks ago. Let's go live to Benjamin Chong Alvarez, I-24 News correspondent, standing by live in Jerusalem. Benjamin, I'm happy to have you with us this morning. On your way into Jerusalem, I'm assuming after all these stabbings, you saw quiet streets, and what is expected this morning?
What is expected this morning? First of all, good morning to you as well. We're here, of course, in Jerusalem at the boulevard overlooking the old city at a part where there's a lot more tension, essentially, a part of the city that has various Arab villages close by, high tension area. As you said, promises for today. There have been calls for more demonstrations by both Hamas and Islamic Jihad. It's not meant to be a day of rest, so to speak. It's a day of prayer. It's Yom al-Jum'ah for the Muslims. And most likely, after morning prayers, there will probably be an outburst of rage. We're not entirely sure yet, because for now, things remain calm with tourists around. Right. We're not entirely sure what's going to happen at this point.
Now, Benjamin, we know that Friday prayers in Jerusalem usually take place around 11:30. Finally, though, on your way into the city, did you sense extra security? Are you seeing more police? Are you seeing more checkpoints?
There's definitely a lot more security around the city. It doesn't seem like Israelis are staying home, but everywhere you go, you can see police officers, you see army, border patrol. The government is definitely taking it very seriously, and you know, they're prepared.
They're prepared, so to speak. Benjamin Chung Alvarez, I-24 News correspondent on the ground, will be with the channel throughout the day in Jerusalem. Thank you for being with us this morning. We are moving to something much lighter because it is Friday, and rage aside, we want to try and calm everybody down, and especially myself, and that's why I am flanked by beautiful people.
That's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here to do.
We're here to shine.
This beautiful, shiny person, exactly.
Yeah. This one.
This one, yeah. Ronnie, stop.
Talking about her, talking about...
Absolutely. I know it's hard to...
Absolutely.
It's really hard to see anything when you look at the bow tie that Ami Kaufman
I'm
shows
in love
this
with
morning.
this thing that always works together.
I know, that it does the connection, the burgundy, the lovely...
Complete package, baby.
Complete package. Yep. It's hard to, you know, it's hard to think of anything else, but we'll move to Ronnie Stubb with anything we need to know about culture.
Yeah,
yes.
As you were saying, I think it is so important to remind ourselves that culture has to always thrive, and we also always have to talk about other things rather than
just mayhem, death, destruction, and hatred. Yes.
Exactly. So we'll try and keep it in respect to everything that's going on, but we will talk about things that are a little different. First of all, Room. It's the movie everyone is talking about at the moment. Not so light right now. We're going to start with something not so light. It debuted in the Telluride Film Festival. It won People's Choice Award in Toronto. It became an award season player right now.
Yeah, and we're smack into award season. It is September through November in the United States. And any movie that comes out, you know, has his eye on the February Oscars.
Yeah, and this one, especially with the movie and the whole idea of the perspective. We are talking about a mother and a child, a mother that was abducted, and she is trying to teach her child about the world from their abductors.
I think we have a trailer.
We do.
Let's have a look.
Let's take a look.
You chose to tell Jack that Room was the whole world, that there was nothing else.
Good morning, lamp. Good morning, plant. Good morning, sink.
In Room, Brie Larson plays a woman who's lovingly created an entire universe for her young son. But in truth, she was abducted, gave birth to her abductor's baby, and has lived with her boy locked up since he was born. She now sees a way out.
This is a love story between a mother and a son, and it's a film about childhood, about parenting. It's a life-affirming film.
Larson says she spends most of her time now doing Q&As with people right after they've seen the film.
And everyone seems to have such a unique personal experience through watching the movie, and hearing the connection and what it means to them. I mean, that's amazing.
8-year-old Jacob Tremblay plays her son.
It's really deeply interesting. The escape scenes are very, very crazy because you're like, are they going to escape? Because the first one doesn't work out, and then they have to try the second one. So it's very interesting.
The film also features William H. Macy and Joan Allen. She feels the buzz surrounding this movie.
Journalists, regular people talk about it and how deeply it makes them feel and think. You know, it seems to be a movie that people are responding to very, very deeply.
Macy showed up after the cast and crew had been shooting in that little room for weeks.
And I walked on the set. I cracked a joke, and people, they were like survivors of something, and they went,
I see windows and hundreds of cars and birds and Grandma and Grandpa.
Jack? Someone here would like to meet you.
What do you think anyone who's going to go see this movie should know?
Just bring lots of tissues with you.
Wow. I think, you know, I'm looking at it, Roni, and I think it goes really straight to the heart. In America, sadly, there are so many stories of abductions of young girls, and I think it was the Amy Dugard story of about 2 years ago.
That she
was found about after like 16 or 17 years in abduction with a child by her abductor or something like that. Just terrifying story, so that probably speaks to the heart of that. But awards season,
it really is. And yeah, everyone's talking about this movie. Everyone's talking about the fact that everyone's going to tear up in that movie.
Bring tissues,
obviously, it is. But the director is the Dublin native Lenny Abramson. What Richard did, Frank, Garage.
Frank.
Yeah,
I loved Frank.
Yeah,
Did you see Frank? You didn't see Frank. You see Frank with the head? Okay, thank you. Fine.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
And he did wrote he wrote the screenwriter of, it is by the novelist Emma Donoghue.
Right.
It's a best-selling novel. And he wrote her a 10-page pitch in order to make her agree to make this novel.
Which is, you know, always hard to convince the author. Time for one more. Let's go to the Coen brothers.
One more, and yes, we do have a new Coen brothers. This is a little more, this is a little more exciting. Hail Caesar! It's about the golden age of Hollywood. Clooney is joining the brothers again, and it's alongside with Ralph Fiennes, Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson, Tilda Swinton, Jonah Hill, Frances McDormand, and we have the trailer. Let's take a look.
That's right.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. How long since your last confession, my son? 27 hours. It's really too often. You're not that bad.
Here at Capitol Pictures, as you know, millions of people look to us for information and uplift and, yes, entertainment. And we're going to give it to them.
And action.
An army of technicians and actors and top-notch artistic people are working hard to bring to the screen our biggest release of the year. Hail Caesar is a prestige picture with one of the biggest stars in the world, Baird Whitlock.
I love it because I think that one of the things that are usually when one can argue about Hollywood is that, you know, the old machine that it is because of those years where they made, was it Ben-Hur, the Bible stories. When Hollywood became as big as it was, and I love nothing more than the Coen brothers making fun of Hollywood.
I know.
Yeah.
And all Hollywood is a key player here. We have A-listers, but I think the old Hollywood is the celebrity in this movie. Absolutely.
Okay, no, brilliant. It is the time to try and keep it, again, with smiles and whatnot, and beautiful blonde women and men with bow ties, and move to Ami Kaufman.
Let's talk about old men with white hair, though.
Yes, please. Yes! Wait, you're going to love this one.
A lot of people have been waiting for this. When is Bernie Sanders going to get on to
Down and jiggy with it.
Ellen DeGeneres show and get down, as you say, get down and get jiggy with it? He finally did it. Should we just let the pictures speak for themselves? Come on, let's just see what he does.
And we can take a look. Let's take a look.
Please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders.
Love it. That is so sweet.
By the way, is that a perfect song choice or no?
Yeah.
Burn.
Yes,
great.
that is. Look at that. Oh.
You know, if you're interested, I don't know, I can show you also how he was warming up before this.
We can't.
Here you go.
We must.
This
is Bernie.
This is Bernie warming up backstage. He's getting into the groove.
He's getting into the groove.
With a staff member and getting
this is getting down and jiggy with it. This is what it's all about. Yeah.
Clapping the
I mean, there
hands.
is one problematic thing, and I will say this as a white person as well. We can't dance.
As Jewish white people as well.
As Jewish white people, even worse.
But this is all we need to do to make sure everyone knows we're having fun.
They always make fun of it. I was wondering if it was sporting the upper white man's bite. Yeah, okay. You know that? Yeah. Okay. Beautiful.
He doesn't like answering personal questions. He never likes that. But he said on this show he will indulge Ellen on one condition that he gives for each question that he answers $1,000 to breast cancer research.
Nice.
So that's what he did on the Ellen DeGeneres show. He's a great guy, right?
He's a great guy. You know, he's never going to be elected. I mean, I'm sorry. You know, we know that because but still, he's a wonderful guy.
Wonderful guy.
Yeah. Some people will say that you can curse him and say that he's a socialist, but yes. Okay.
Let's keep it with Bernie.
Let's keep it with Bernie.
Andy Borowitz is one of my favorite political satire writers. He's from the New Yorker. He has a great column there, and this came out after the Democratic debate. Let's see the headline. It's fantastic. Remember when he talked about he's had enough of the damn emails.
Right, exactly.
In serious gaffe, Sanders treats opponent with dignity and respect. And the text reads, in a major slip that may prove fatal to his presidential ambitions, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont treated his principal opponent for the Democratic nomination with dignity and respect on Tuesday night.
Yes,
they're calling it a gaffe of historic proportions. How dare he?
How dare he actually be a human being? I mean, that's the thing that people would argue about the debates. That granted, the Republican debates are slightly more interesting because they're insane. I mean, we have to say it when you have
Donald
I mean, Donald Trump. I'm just excited about watching it like every other reality show that makes no sense.
Although Ben Carson is doing a great job being ridiculous.
Being ridiculous. When Ben Carson, and there is something that goes across the board, that, you know, American nominees for the presidency should stay away from the Holocaust. That's
they should
never
just
works.
don't
never
talk
works.
about it.
Do not talk about the Holocaust. Obama made the same mistake. But that said, it's, you know, when you saw that debate and you said that about the Democratic debate, it sounded like a political debate.
Yeah, they knew the issues.
They knew the issues.
They knew
what
what
they were talking about. Right.
It was intelligent. It was just intelligent.
Okay. Yes. And
new commercial from Toyota, and it's ahead of part of a campaign to like advertise this new company's forthcoming hydrogen fuel cell technology, which is something that was actually kind of that they saw in the movie Back to the Future. They were talking about it in Back to the Future. So what they did is, as part of this campaign, they brought Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. And also because it's almost October 21st, 2015, which is the day that, if you remember,
exactly. Back to the Future.
So can we watch the commercial where they brought the two together and talk about how they kind of predicted things that were in the movie that were going to be in the future?
Okay, this is Marty McFly. Let's take a look.
And Professor Lloyd.
And Professor Lloyd.
Emmett Brown, excuse me, Dr. Emmett Brown.
Dr. Emmett Brown. Boom.
We got fingerprint technology?
And those self-tying sneakers.
I'm waiting for those. Dog walking robots?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Can you believe we still have fax machines used to be around?
Yeah, I got a fax machine.
Who do you fax?
I fax the people I fax.
One guy in Ohio has a fax machine. You fax him?
Well, I'll fax you. I'll
fax
That's beautiful. That's nice.
No, that is beautiful. When is the date? It's October
21st. October 21st.
All of you, including one of my editors, are like, yes, it's October 21st. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, but you still talk about a new movie coming out, a fourth Back to the Future.
There's rumors. Be a fourth?
There's just rumors.
Just rumors.
And Christopher Lloyd said he would definitely do it if they had the old cast coming back. He said he would join.
Wow. Okay.
And speaking of movies and connecting to some news that we talked about before, the Volkswagen scandal. Look at this headline from the New York Daily News. Leonardo DiCaprio has acquired
sorry, did that come out loud?
movie.
Okay, yes. Leonardo
just said tad too loud.
Leonardo DiCaprio, yes.
There was a similar reaction, by the way, before I got into this room from other people back there. I just want to say that you're not the only one.
Just saying that.
Acquires the movie rights to the Volkswagen scandal. The scandal, by the way, is not over. We're in the beginning of this.
Movie rights.
What are they going to write about?
So first of all, it started with this. The International New York Times European economics correspondent, Jack Ewing, has already said that he is preparing to write a book about the whole thing.
Right.
So that made people jump, okay, we're probably going to have to make a movie about it. So Paramount Pictures and Appian Way, which is DiCaprio's production company, have already stepped in and reportedly grabbed the movie rights to make this thing that'll probably be based on that man's book.
That man's book.
Probably.
Okay.
That's how it's going to look.
I will remind you all also that Leonardo DiCaprio, if you remember, he's a very, very big environmentalist.
Yeah.
I mean, he's huge.
Exactly.
And,
that is why he's
so
into
that
this.
makes sense
That's
that
why
it would
he's
go.
Into this.
Yeah. Okay.
Having said that, this is a cynical use of an environmental. The moment is not over. How can you write a book about it? Like, just give it a moment and then
let's see how it plays out, right?
And who is exactly going to write the ending? Will it be Hollywood or will it be Volkswagen? Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know.
And
Star Wars movie is coming out pretty soon, and there's all this paraphernalia you can buy. Here's something that we see from Board Pen. You can get your own Star Wars shower heads with a Darth Vader shower head.
Finally!
Or an R2-D2. R2-D2 shower head. Look at that. That's the Darth Vader
in the 45
one.
seconds that we have, I'm going to tell you, look at that R2-D2, but stay with I-24 News because coming up next is the best of the week that was. We'll show you what you missed in the morning edition, and of course, something about Playboy. Apparently, nudity is passé. So stay tuned and stay with the news for the rest of the day with I-24.